summit coverage. So our top story this morning, naturally, is the third Inter-Korean summit of this year that begins one day from now in Pyeongyang. And on Sunday, South Korea's presidential office announced the list of delegates who will be accompanying President Moon Jae-in to the North Korean capital. Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
More than 150 delegates will be accompanying President Moon on his trip to Pyeongyang. There are 14 officials from the government, including National Security Advisor Chung Eui-yong and the intelligence chief Seo Hoon, both of whom have been sent to North Korea as special envoys. Plus the ministers in charge of unification, foreign affairs, and national defense. Also included are the ministers of culture, land, maritime affairs, and the head of the forest service, a sign that Seoul wants to talk about cultural and sports exchanges, railway and road connections, and forestation.
President Moon Jae-in explained the aims of this summit as the following: to improve and further develop inter-Korean relations, to mediate between North Korea and the U.S., and revive their denuclearization talks, and to completely eliminate military tensions and the threat of war on the Korean peninsula.
Many South Korean business leaders are going too, namely the head of Hyundai Group, which spearheaded both the tours to Mount Kumgang and the Inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex, and the head of the Association of Companies that ran businesses at the industrial zone.
Those who will be going include the chairperson of Hyundai Group, Hyun Jung-eun, the chairman of SK Group, Choi Tae-won, LG Group chairman, Gu Kwang-mo, the vice chairman of Samsung Electronics, Lee Jae-yong, and the vice president of Hyundai Motor Group, Kim Yong-hwan.
For the first time in the history of inter-Korean summits, the leaders of some of South Korea's political parties are going to Pyongyang as well. Those who accepted the president's invitation are the heads of the ruling Democratic Party, the minor opposition Party for Democracy and Peace, and the minor progressive Justice Party. The delegation will also include representatives of civic groups, as well as the arts, religion, and labor. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, let's take things to the main press center for the 2018 Inter-Korean Summit Pyongyang, set up at the Dongdaemun Design Plaza. And that's where we have our Blue House correspondent Shin Se-min standing by for us. Se-min, the venue opened its doors for the press on Sunday, and we hear it's already a hive of activity.
Mark, the making of the third Inter-Korean summit between the leaders of the Koreas were done in such a short amount of time, and perhaps that is why many of us here at the press center are still unaware of the detailed schedule of the summit, which President Moon will be flying to tomorrow. But in about an hour or so, we should have a clear picture as to what the summit will be like, because the presidential chief of staff, who also doubles a role as the head of the summit preparatory committee, Im Jong-seok, will be briefing us all on the detailed schedule of President Moon's three-day stay in the North Korean capital of Pyongyang. And Mark, this week's summit will be the first time in over a decade that the leaders of the Koreas will hold a meeting in the North Korean capital. And also, for the first time, parts of the Pyongyang summit will be broadcast live around the world. So it is no exaggeration to say that the anticipation is high, as many are looking to see how the summit this week will be different from the ones we've previously seen. Mark?
Okay, so the schedule is coming up soon, and already the advance team is up there in North Korea to ensure this summit runs as smoothly as possible. Have we heard anything from them yet?
The last time we heard from them was around late Sunday afternoon, around 3 p.m. upon their arrival to the North Korean capital. Official of some 90 personnel, including the officials of the broadcast officials in charge of the media coverage, have confirmed that they have arrived around 3 p.m. and also confirmed that the fax transmissions, which will be used to communicate with officials here in the South, are up and running as well. Now, though we don't know their detailed schedule for today, it is widely widely assumed that the team will be putting the final touches on the upcoming summit, which is now less than a day away. And the team in the north is made up of officials in charge of media coverage, including the live broadcast technicians, as well as protocol and security staff. Mark?
Well, thank you very much, Semin, for that report from the Dongdaemun Design Plaza, which is the home for the main press center for the big summit. The first time a South Korean leader is going to North Korea in well over a decade. So because the Inter-Korean summit takes place in North Korea's capital, it goes without saying, really, that there are limits to media coverage. As a result, South Korea's presidential office is operating that main press center in central Seoul that we just connected to our Shin Se-min at, and they're going to receive all the latest footage from the north. Officials will also keep all the reporters there up to speed with regular briefings during the 3 days of the summit. Our Park Hee-jun reports.
One of the most memorable moments during the April 27th summit in Panmunjom was when South Korean President Moon Jae-in and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met for the first time at the military demarcation line. When the main press center in Ilsan, Gyeonggi-do Province broadcast live coverage of President Moon stepping over to the north, journalists experienced an overwhelming rush of emotions. The main press center will be playing that same role during the Pyongyang summit, but this time it's in the heart of Seoul. South Korea's presidential office is operating the center at the Dongdaemun Design Plaza to accommodate thousands of members of the local and international media. This is the closest the international media can get to the Pyongyang summit. Details of the meeting will be sent from Pyongyang to the main press center, which journalists will deliver to the rest of the world. The MPC includes the main briefing room, international broadcasting center, interview room, and a master control room. In the main briefing room, journalists will be able to watch live video footage of the summit via 2 giant screens. There will also be debates among different panels of experts. The press center will be connected to an online platform to provide details on the summit in 9 different languages, including English, Chinese, and Arabic. Media members will also be able to access articles, photos, and videos on the summit at any time and any place. The center is scheduled to operate through Friday, a day after the summit ends. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
So almost 5 months have passed since the leaders of the two Koreas, President Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un, met face-to-face for the very first time back in late April. Our Oh Jung-hee takes a look into how much of their summit agreement, known as the Panmunjom Declaration, has been carried out and what still needs to be worked on.
Just last Friday, the two Koreas opened their joint liaison office following through on a major part of the April summit agreement. Located within the Kaesong Industrial Complex, a joint factory park Seoul and Pyeongyang ran together until 2016, the office started operation immediately after Friday's opening ceremony. 15 to 20 officials, each from South and North Korea, are working there from 9 to 5 every day. The South Koreans work on the 2nd floor and the North Koreans on the 4th, and they can meet each other on the 3rd floor whenever they need to.
We have opened a communication channel involving officials from the two Koreas that runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We'll do our best so this contributes to a groundbreaking development in inter-Korean relations.
Another big way the two Koreas have moved closer together is the family reunions held last month, the first in 3 years. 2 rounds were held for 3 days each at North Korea's Mount Kumgang Resort, involving nearly 200 families meeting each other for the first time since the Korean War 70 years ago. As the years go by, there are fewer and fewer people still living who have relatives on the other side, so the need for the reunions is more urgent than ever.
South and North Korea have agreed to hold family reunions once again within this year. The specifics will be ironed out through working-level talks.
While promoting interactions, the two Koreas have also worked to lower military tensions. They've stopped distributing propaganda leaflets, turned off their propaganda broadcasts along the border, and restored their military communication line in the West. Military authorities from both sides are now in talks about mutually disarming their soldiers at the joint security area in the demilitarized zone, jointly excavating war remains, and withdrawing troops from guard posts on a trial basis. There's more to come throughout the rest of the year, from concerts in South Korea by North Korean performers and inter-Korean basketball games, to cooperation on railways, roads, and forestation. The Joint Liaison Office is there to take care of it all. 오정희, Arirang News.
Now, if you're just joining us, the third Inter-Korean Summit of the year will get underway in around 24 hours in the North Korean capital. And regional powers will be keeping extra close tabs on the summit's outcome as denuclearization talks have ground to a halt in recent months. For the experts' take on all the different viewpoints, here's Cha Sang-mi.
Amid rising expectations for the 2018 Inter-Korean Summit in Pyeongyang, regional powers are keeping close tabs on what will be discussed and agreed between the two Korean leaders. Arirang News interviewed experts from 4 neighboring countries to hear their opinions on the third Inter-Korean Summit of this year.
I think now, in terms of U.S. foreign policy, specifically towards North Korea, I think there is more of a sentiment to try to work on a compromise. The American people are very tired of war. They're very tired of seeing Americans come back in body bags or, having different, mental health issues because they've seen war.
Citing the multiple fronts the U.S. is fighting on right now, including Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria, Harry Kaziani says that the American public seems more optimistic about Kim Jong-un's intention to denuclearize. A Chinese expert says that Beijing also wants to see a better inter-Korean relations.
That will help reduce the chance of another military conflict of the Korean Peninsula. And also, China has a long-term interest in regional economic integration in Northeast Asia. If South Korea is able to forge a closer economic relationship with North Korea, that will also make it easier for China to enhance its economic and trading cooperation with North Korea.
A Russian expert reiterated the importance of resolving the issue with dialogue.
Well, Russia has always supported the strategy of sorting out, of deciding all the problems on Korean Peninsula by dialogue and diplomatic ways. We are very much relieved that the new government, Moon Jae-in government, is very positive, both in relations with North Korea and also with relation to Russia.
As for Japan, which has been taking a hardline stance on the North due to issues such as the abduction of its citizens, the Pyongyang summit could serve as a catalyst for Pyongyang and Tokyo to normalize their ties too.
If South Korea and North Korea could promote a dialogue over the denuclearization issue between the United States and North Korea, that has a positive impact on Japan because that helps Japan and North Korea engage in dialogue regarding normalization issue.
The 4 neighboring countries may all have different issues with the regime, but they share a goal, establishing a lasting peace and a denuclearized Korean peninsula so that no one has to fear another war. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
Now, with the upcoming summit putting a spotlight on inter-Korean relations, artists are using plays and exhibitions to help the public better understand the lives of people from the North. Seoul reports.
There's a lot to focus on North Korea's politics in the run-up to the upcoming summit. But what about the regular people in and from the North? South Korea's cultural scene has put the lives of ordinary North Koreans in the spotlight. Local artists are using plays and exhibitions to shed light on how people from North Korea live. A dance drama performance called Island looks at North Korean defectors living in the South. This solo dance performance starts by calling North Korean defectors onto the stage to hear them out.
There are a lot of North Korean defectors in our neighborhood. I planned this performance with the hope that we can get along with them.
The gestures made on stage represent emotions and situations that North Korean defectors go through when adjusting to their new community. Theater actors have also launched the Inter-Korean Theater Exchange Committee in July with the aim of exchanging play actors between the two Koreas. Meanwhile, a series of exhibitions depicting the lives of individual North Koreans have taken place in Korea, including one in the southwest city of Gwangju. Photographer Wang Gofeng brought these unknown photos and videos taken in the north to the South Korean public. From 2011, he made visits to North Korea 5 times and took photos and videos of ordinary people there. The artist hoped to shift people's attention away from the North Korea regime and towards the individual who lived there. To do so, the artist zoomed in on facial expressions of people in political rallies and took pictures of ordinary citizens such as car drivers, teachers, and students. Through the art community's continued efforts, South Koreans can better understand the lives of ordinary people from North Korea. 서은경, Arirang News.
Now, it's a busy week for diplomacy in New York City as well as Pyongyang. The United Nations will kick off its 73rd General Assembly at its headquarters in the Big Apple on Tuesday. 97 world leaders and 196 representatives from member states will be attending this year's assembly, and 9 agendas will be covered, including international peace and security and the promotion of human rights. South Korean President Moon Jae-in, that man there, US President Donald Trump, and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will be making speeches next week. North Korea's Foreign Affairs Minister Ri Yong-ho is also expected to do the same, with key players of the North Korea denuclearization process all present at the event. Eyes are on whether they will hold any bilateral or even multilateral talks. The United States has named 4-star General Robert B. Abrams to lead the 28,000 American troops stationed here in South Korea, replacing General Vincent Brooks. Abrams is expected to take over as the commander of U.S. Forces Korea sometime between the end of October and the beginning of November, as his confirmation hearing is set for September 25th. Abrams was previously the commanding general of U.S. Army Forces Command, which oversees all U.S. Army combat units inside the continental United States. US President Donald Trump has reportedly directed his aides to proceed with fresh tariffs on Chinese goods. The Wall Street Journal reports that the measures could be announced as early as Monday local time. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
The Trump administration is set to announce additional tariffs on Chinese goods worth some $200 billion. Citing a senior government official, the Wall Street Journal reported over the weekend that the new tariffs could come as early as Monday local time. It also explained that the new tariffs, as instructed by President Trump, will be set at 10%, lower than the initial figure of 25%. President Trump has signaled numerous times during the past weeks that he could slap additional tariffs on a wide range of consumer goods manufactured in China. Aside from such measures, U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin has made clear that high-level talks aimed at alleviating the trade tensions between Washington and Beijing will be held late next week. While the U.S. aims to squeeze Beijing, the Trump administration's additional tariffs could jeopardize the discussions and lead to fresh retaliation from China. The trade war was initiated by Washington's 25% tariff on $34 billion worth of Chinese goods in July, prompting China to hit back with its own levies on American goods worth the same amount. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, foreign investors' purchases of South Korean bonds has hit another record high, topping $100 billion as of the end of August. The Financial Supervisory Service says foreigners extended their net buying for the 8th consecutive month. Purchases of local bonds mainly came from Asia and Europe, who bought more South Korean government and monetary stabilization bonds. Foreign investors, led by those from the US and Singapore, also bought more local stocks than they sold, for a net buy of $980 million in August. Their purchases, totaling $534 billion, accounted for about a third of transactions on the domestic market. South Korea says there have been no confirmations of additional MERS patients since the first case of the deadly virus earlier this month, with all suspected cases testing negative. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said on Sunday that 14 people who had been placed under quarantine have all tested negative, but officials are continuing to keep close tabs on 21 people who came in close contact with the first patient. If they test negative again, all 21 will be released later this week, as the maximum incubation period of secondary cases is around 14 days. A super typhoon is wreaking havoc in China's most populous province of Guangdong, with winds of more than 160 kilometers an hour. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Aram. So Aram, fill us in on the latest.
Yes, indeed, Mark. Chinese media say 2 more people were killed as Typhoon Mangkhut made landfall in southern China on Sunday. It has already left about 60 people dead in the Philippines when it passed through the day before. Nearly 2.5 million people have been evacuated from 7 cities in Guangdong. In Hong Kong, authorities issued the maximum typhoon alert warning, advising residents to stay indoors to avoid flying debris. They also warned people to stay away from the Victoria Harbour landmark, where storm surges as high as 3.5 metres battered the waterfront. Most shops and public services have been closed. Hundreds of flights have also been cancelled at Hong Kong International Airport, and all high-speed rail services were also halted. The gambling enclave of Macau, meanwhile, closed its casinos for the first time ever in its history. Mangkhut is expected to weaken into a tropical depression by Tuesday as it moves inland. Meanwhile, over in the United States, officials in North Carolina are warning that the worst from Storm Florence is far from over. It has already drenched the state with catastrophic flooding, cutting off the city of Wilmington. Tens of thousands of homes have been damaged or destroyed, and at least 18 people now are said to have died. Despite being weakened to a tropical depression by Sunday, Florence was forecast to drop another 13 to 25 centimeters of rain. Fresh evacuations were ordered further inland as rivers crested and spilled out their banks. Florence is slowly moving west, but is expected to turn north towards Ohio over the next day or two. In other news, Kenya's Olympic marathon champion Eliud Kipchoge has set a new world record, winning Sunday's Berlin Marathon in 2 hours, 1 minute and 39 seconds. The 33-year-old managed to shave off a staggering 78 seconds off the previous record that was set by fellow Kenyan Dennis Kimeto 4 years ago. Kipchoge is widely seen as the greatest marathon runner of the modern era. He has won 10 of the 11 marathons he has competed in, and also won a gold medal at the 2016 Rio Olympics. In another victory for Kenyan athletes, Gladys Cherono won the women's race in 2 hours, 18 minutes and 11 seconds, setting a new women's record for the course in Berlin. Speculation is swirling over the whereabouts of Fan Bingbing, one of China's most famous and highest-paid actresses. She has not been seen in public since June, sparking rumours she had been detained by the government over allegations of tax evasion. The accusations began when copies of 2 alleged film contracts were leaked online, one showing she was paid $1.5 million and the other for $7.5 million. These are known in China as yin-yang contracts, in which the smaller of the two is reported for tax purposes. The 36-year-old boasts an impressive film career with Chinese, Korean, French and Hollywood titles under her belt, including the X-Men franchise. She also has a combined social media following of over 65 million people and is said to be worth $100 million.
Good morning. Most parts will have the sunshine back, while those of you on Jeju Island will need your umbrellas, as the island will see rainfall all day, gradually picking up to 30 to 120 millimeters of precipitation. And temperature-wise, those of us in Seoul will notice warmer afternoon highs compared to yesterday, but we will see bigger gaps in readings of nearly 10 degrees Celsius. And daily highs will range between 26 and 28 degrees Celsius. Seoul, Daegu, and Gyeongju will notice warmer afternoon highs today, topping out at 28 degrees Celsius. And those on Jeju will need to drive with care, again, as rain is expected all day today. In fact, today could be the warmest afternoon of the season as readings will gradually go down, and next week we will notice much cooler air for sure. And over in Pyeongyang, where Inter-Korean Summit will take place from tomorrow, we'll have sunny skies with big gaps in temperatures for the next few days. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's where we're going to have to leave it for now on this Monday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll have our next newscast at noon, Korea time, with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.